Hi, welcome to the second mini lecture for Chapter 2. And in this lecture, we're going to focus on Learning Outcome 2-2, which is to describe the source documents used to track direct materials and direct labor cost to the job cost sheet. In other words, how to assign manufacturing costs to jobs. Now, if you remember back in the last chapter, we learned some vocabulary. We learned that manufacturing costs are divided into three categories. Every single cost that is incurred in the factory has to fall into one of these three categories: direct materials, direct labor, or manufacturing overhead. Direct materials are the major materials input that can be directly and conveniently traced to each job. If you remember, we used the example of the pen. And we said that the direct materials, the materials that could be traced to the pen, would be the metal, the plastic barrel, the ink, and maybe that rubber tip on the end. Direct means they could be directly and conveniently traced to the pen. Direct labor is the hands-on labor that goes into producing the product or service. So it would be the person who fabricates the pen parts, which means makes the pen parts, like the barrel, for example, or the person who assembles or puts together the pen. So fabrication and assembly are both direct labor, hands-on labor, labor that can be tracked and traced to the pen. Now, what about that little bit of white, if you can see it, white writing on the pen? It's hard for you to see that, perhaps. It's not going to work, unfortunately, but there's a little bit of white writing on that pen. I'll roll it back and forth to maybe see if you can see that white writing. Would that be a direct material? Well, technically yes, but it's not convenient to trace that little bit of writing on the pen. So we are going to call that little bit of writing manufacturing overhead, because it's not convenient to trace that little bit of ink that's used in writing out the name of the company on the pen. So manufacturing overhead includes all costs other than direct materials and direct labor. So it might be the ink to put that name on the pen, and that's an indirect material, or it might be indirect labor, such as the security guard that works at the factory, or the plant manager, or the production supervisor. The labor of anyone who does not actually work in fabrication and assembly would be called indirect labor, and that would be part of manufacturing overhead. All other costs that happen in the factory would be in that category too. For example, property taxes if you own the building, or rent if you rent the building, the utilities, the maintenance costs such as wax for the floor, paper towels in the ladies' and the men's room, any cost that happens in the factory that is not direct material or direct labor becomes manufacturing overhead. Okay, in a job order cost system, all of the manufacturing costs are recorded on a document called the job cost sheet, which provides a detailed record of the costs incurred to complete a specific job, the direct materials, direct labor, and applied manufacturing overhead. Let's take a look at what those look like. Here's an example of a job cost sheet. We have a job number, an identification number assigned to the job, the day that the job was started, and this job is not yet completed, so there's nothing for the completed date. We have a description of the job as well. And here's the three categories where we keep track of direct material, direct labor, and applied manufacturing overhead. Now, how do the materials and labor get on here? Well, we have to go to what's called our source documents. Now, in our textbook, they begin with the materials requisition form, but very truthfully, the process starts much earlier. First of all, the sales department tells the production department how much of an item they would be able to sell, and a production schedule would be developed, indicating the type and quantity of the products that needed to be produced to meet the sales schedule. And then a bill of materials would be provided by the engineering department, which is kind of like a recipe. It lists all the raw materials needed to manufacture the job. And the purchasing department would make sure to buy any materials that were needed if they are not currently in stock. Then a production order is issued that lists the quantities and the shipping date to start that production process, and that is what generates that job cost sheet. Okay, so first of all, we've got our materials requisition form, and this is a form that lists the quantity and cost of the direct materials to be used on a particular job. Okay, and this form is used to control the physical flow of materials. Let's take a look at that. Here is a materials requisition form. It's got a number on it, a date. It's got the job number, which indicates the job that these materials are requested for, and a description as well. And here are the materials. We've got 18-inch by 18-inch travertine marble tiles. We need 300 square feet. They cost $2.50 each. We multiply that out for a total cost of $750. We also need a decorative border, 40 square feet at $15 each. That's $600. And then 3 bags of grout. When we add those total costs together for the materials, it would be $1,750. And that amount goes onto our job cost sheet. There's the reference number, which indicates the materials requisition form, so that we can trace them back and forth. Now, what about the labor? Well, here's our direct labor time ticket. This is a source document that shows how much time a worker spends on various jobs each week. So this is for the week of Monday, August 12th through Friday, August 16th. And there's the ticket number for Bill Robertson. And here are our days, time started and ended each day, how many hours, the hourly rate, and on which jobs Bill Robertson worked. So then what we can do is accumulate the number of hours. Let's take a look at job number 27. He worked, let's see, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 4. So that would be 28 hours. And he gets paid $25 an hour. So 28 times 25. That means we're going to charge $700 of direct labor from time ticket 335. That was Bill Robertson. A total of 28 hours worked on job 27 at $25 an hour, $700 of direct labor charged to that job. Now, what about Bill's time that says training? Most likely, since that can be charged to a specific job, that will be charged as indirect labor to manufacturing overhead. And we're going to be talking about manufacturing overhead in the next mini lecture. So let's take a break for a moment, and we're going to work on another problem. We're going to be doing E2-3. And if you have not printed out the worksheet, please do so now and come back so that we can do this together. Okay, so we're looking here at labor. We've got a time ticket, number 338, for Joyce Caldwell. This is from Monday, August 13th through Friday, August 17th. And they want us to determine how much of the $1,200 that Joyce earned that week would be charged to each of the jobs that she worked on. Then they want to know how we would handle the maintenance work. That's indirect labor. So what we're going to do is let's make a little list here of each job. Let's take a look first of all at job 271. So let's see, for job 271, we worked 8 hours on August 12th, 8 hours on August 13th, and that's it, 16 hours. So we would multiply 16 hours times a rate of $30 per hour that means $480 of direct labor would be charged to job 271. It would go on the job order cost sheet. How about job 272? Well, Joyce worked 8 hours on August 14th and 4 hours on August 15th. So 8 and 4 make 12. So 12 hours times $30 per hour makes $360 charged to job 272. Now let's take a look at job 273. We only have a total of 8 hours charged to job 273, so we'd multiply 8 times $30. That's $240. And that would go on the job cost sheet for job 273 as direct labor. Okay, so we finished part 1. Part 2 says, explain how the time spent doing maintenance work would be recorded. Well, what we would do is we would take the maintenance time, 4 hours, multiply it by the $30, and get $120, and that would be charged to the manufacturing overhead account, because that cannot be traced to any particular job. And we'll talk in our next mini lecture about how manufacturing overhead will get added onto that job cost sheet, because we have not yet added that third category, cost category, onto our job cost sheet. So that ends our second mini lecture. Take care.